Sentencing for Robert Keegan, the killing Aiden Ellison on November 23rd of 2020, has been handed down. Thank you for joining us for Newswatch 12 at 6. I'm Haley Gravitt. Today, Newswatch 12's Brett Taylor was at the Jackson County Courthouse as Keegan's sentencing was issued and got to speak with demonstrators about their thoughts on it. Brett, how long will Keegan be in prison, and what did you hear from those demonstrators?
Well, Haley, Keegan was sentenced to 12 years in prison today, 10 years for that first-degree manslaughter charge, and another 2 years for that unlawful use of a weapon and reckless endangering charges. Now, we have learned from the state's district attorney that Keegan will actually, in fact, only be serving about 9.5 years out of that 12-year sentence, because the 2.5 years that he was spending in jail while this process was ongoing will be accounted as time credited. We've also learned that 7.5 of those 9.5 years will be spent in state prison, and the other 2 years will be served right here in a local jail. Now, as for demonstrators, when I talked to them today, and they of course learned of this news, they told me that they felt like the justice system failed them, failed the community, and of course, most importantly, failed the community of Aiden Ellison, and that more justice needed to be served.
The fact that Robert Keegan is just going to serve 10 years for taking the life of a 19-year-old son and brother is just, it's so incredibly horrifying.
You'll serve 120 months in the Department of Corrections.
After nearly 3 years of waiting, Robert Keegan, the man convicted of killing Aiden Ellison back on November 23rd, 2020, has been sentenced to 12 years in prison.
I think he did the maximum that you could do with these charges, and that's what we requested. There were minor difference in the order of sentencing that we wanted, but it was the same net sentence that we requested. So given the verdict, I think it was an appropriate sentence given the facts of the case.
All right, that's it. Court to recess.
10 years for his convicted first-degree manslaughter charge, and another 2 years, one for each unlawful use and reckless endangering charge. But with Keegan spending roughly 2.5 years in jail, the state says that time will be credited.
Now, he's already served about 2.5 years in our jail, and he would get credit for that towards that sentence.
Meaning that Keegan will only be spending roughly the next 9.5 years in prison, leaving many that came out to this morning's demonstration for a harsher sentence wanting more.
Andrea Wofford will never have her son back. His brother and sister will never get to be with their brother again. Robert Keegan will get to spend time with his son. He will be out in 10 years and have the rest of his life. And nothing about this feels right. It's devastating. It's devastating. And it's devastating that more people aren't here. Where is our community?
It's unfortunate that a 19-year-old's life ended, and he will never get the chance to have children, never get the chance to get married and have a life.
Many that showed out to that demonstration this morning also told me that they felt that the jury made the wrong decision, saying that Keegan was not guilty of murder.
It was a murder. Like, murder happened. There's a life that isn't here anymore, and it's because you didn't like the volume of his music. You deserve more than a minimum just off the bare facts.
And who gets to decide when it is and isn't racism?
Citing that racism continues to play a role in justice not being served here in Oregon.
We can sit here and talk about how racism is bad, but does that fix the problem? No, it doesn't. It takes more than just acknowledgement that racism is there. And this trial doesn't even reflect the acknowledgement that racism was even a factor.
And that more people need to take a stand to make sure that those like Ellison get the justice that they deserve.
This is a call for action to be better and do better. Show up for each other as if we're all related.
Now, of course, this was not an easy day for many, but I do want to reiterate and clarify that, again, according to state attorneys that we spoke with, this was in fact the maximum sentence that they could issue, at least in this case. Again, the case of Robert Keegan. They explained to me that, of course, the minimum sentence for a first-degree manslaughter charge is 10 years, but because of the circumstances with this case, that includes, of course, Keegan not having a criminal background, not being convicted of any charges before in the past, and not even potentially being on parole or probation, that due to the certain blocks and circumstances, again, of this case, that was 10 years that were sentenced for that first-degree manslaughter charge was the most that the district attorney could ask for from that judge today. Again, reiterating that that was just the case. Now, of course, the Ashland community will continue to try to heal from this and will continue to search for justice and make sure that those like Ellison get the justice that they deserve. But for now, reporting live in Medford, I'm Brett Taylor, News Watch 12.